Trump's warning that a whole civilization will die tonight was more than bluster. It was a reckless invocation of nuclear destruction that shattered diplomatic norms and reignited questions about his fitness to command American power. It is hard to exaggerate the dire implications of Trump's April 7 post on Truth Social, stating that, quote, "a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again," end of quote, if no deal is reached with Iran. Such a damning statement implies that he would use weapons of mass destruction, i.e. nuclear, to execute his threat. Obviously, he cannot destroy such a huge country and annihilate a population of 95 million with conventional weapons. Even though Trump was unlikely to carry out his threat, what he said was not taken lightly by either Iran or much of the international community. International outrage over Trump's threat. Trump's outrageous statement has drawn an extraordinary wave of condemnations, from Tehran to the Vatican to international rights bodies. Amnesty International's Secretary General denounced Trump's creed as an apocalyptic threat, warning that his vow to end, quote, "a whole civilization," end of quote, exposing a staggering level of cruelty and disregard for human lives, and should trigger urgent global action to prevent atrocity crimes. Pope Leo XIV called the language truly unacceptable, and Prime Minister of Britain Starmer condemned Trump's threat, stating that, quote, "they are the not words that I would ever use, because I come with this, our British value and principles," end of quote. Together, these reactions, among many others, underscore that the Trump's rhetoric is not being treated as a mere bombast, but a genocidal threat that sheds basic norms of international law. Iranian officials' reactions to Trump's statement. The Iranian embassy in Pakistan mocked the idea that Trump could erase a culture that survived Alexander and the Mongols, insisting that civilization, quote, "are not born overnight and will not die overnight." Trump's vow to bring Iranians back to the Stone Age and to let the whole civilization die have indeed landed in Tehran not as an outburst. Iranian leaders are treating his language as an open admission of intent to commit war crimes, and they are already treating it as a narrative of existential struggle with Washington. In the hands of the Revolutionary Guard, the Stone Age threats become a propaganda gift. It is proof, they claim, the United States does not merely oppose regime, but it dreams of erasing an entire people. The IRGC's response has been defiant rather than coward, promising stronger, wider, and more destructive retaliation, and signaling that any American escalation will be met in kind. To be sure, many Iranian leaders see Trump's post as desperate brinkmanship, a schoolyard bully, bluffer, nuclear annihilation he cannot deliver. That interpretation may calm nerves around the country, but it might also tempt Tehran to call his bluff, raising the risk of miscalculation. Under any circumstance, Trump has provided Iran's ruler the opportunity to claim that any concessions wrung from Washington under such apocalyptic pressure is not capitulation. Still, Iran's millennium-old history attests that these proud people with the richest civilization will not succumb to any threat. The Iranian public's reaction. Trump's promise to hit Iran extremely hard also operates as a psychological warfare against an already exhausted society. They place the threat of physical destruction on top of years of sanctions, economic meltdown, and repression. For many Iranians, especially parents and the elderly, hearing a U.S. president casually warn that a whole civilization will die tonight converts abstract geopolitics into an intimate dread they can imagine and quantify. Hospitals without power, children without food and water, people starving to death, and cities laying in ruins. This deepens their anxiety, concerns, and a sense that they are being collectively punished for decisions made by a mad authoritarian whose genocidal tone hardens a defensive nationalism. Even the Iranians, who despise the regime, still view the threat as an assault on the 3,000-year-old culture. They would rally around the flag as they see their own lives as expendable in a struggle where the alternative, as Trump himself spells it out, a civilizational extinction. On the Iranian streets and in the diaspora, one hears echoes of Trump's rhetoric, triggering a volatile mix of fear, fury, and contempt that the regime can readily weaponize. For some Iranians, talk of a civilization dying represent the psychic wounds of crippling sanctions and war, making American threats feel dreadfully real, not figurative. For others, it's an insufferable insult to a nation culture that predates the United States by millennia, reinforcing national pride and engendering support even among critics of the clerics. Trump's fitness to command American power. These Iranians' reactions rebound into U.S. politics because a president whose threats are interpreted abroad as genocidal, unhinged, or clearly insane is not projecting resolve, but publicizing volatility and strategic incoherence. This inevitably undermines deterrence and hands Iran both a recruitment tool and a pretext for escalation if they must. On the home front, the perception of a man on the loose feeds directly into already fierce debate over Trump's mental fitness to command American power, arming critics to argue that his apocalyptic language is not just morally repugnant, but operationally unthinkable. This led even some Republicans and national security conservatives to ask whether a commander-in-chief who casually talks of destroying civilization and whose finger is on the nuclear button can indeed be trusted with the judgment, discipline, and national security on which the United States ultimately depends. When a president of the United States threatens that a whole civilization will die, the world must listen. Not because the threat is necessarily credible, but because it exposes the peril of letting unrestrained rhetoric shape global realities. Trump's words are not the tantrum of a man out of power. They echo a worldview that wields extinction as a diplomacy and gambles civilization itself for theatrical dominance and the projection of raw power. Trump's declaration that millions might perish is not merely the raving of an unbalanced mind. It is a chilling testament to how easily words can imperil peace when uttered by one who commands the world's most formidable military. His invocation of civilization and death transcends political recklessness. It reveals a moral collapse that renders him ominously unfit to wield influence over American power and the global order. There seems to be no level of disgrace that Trump will not embrace. One day, he threatens to wipe out a whole civilization and exterminate 95 million Iranians. The next, he betrays himself in an AI-generated image as Jesus Christ-like Savior healing the sick, a blasphemy that only Trump can commit, debasing the exalted and sublime values of Christianity, only to feed his sick soul. What was once dismissed as a bluster must now be recognized for what it is, a warning that when a dangerous mendacity meets bottomless ego, humanity itself becomes collateral. The world cannot allow a man's man narrative to become the language of statecraft.